Welcome to this podcast all the way from Mzuzu. It's a special edition because Mzuzu holds a very special place in my heart. Every time I come here, I always say it feels like home because it was home for me for 5 years. And for a special reason, I'm glad to be here in a very special department because I'm at Mzuzu University with a very special guest, Dr. Gogoda, right?
Yes.
The full name is Dr. Crispin Gogoda.
Yes.
PhD.
Yes.
Okay, because some people would be thinking doctor, medical doctor or something like that. So it's Dr. Gogoda, PhD.
Yeah.
All right. There's something that I found, and let me just read this, and then you listen. This is where we're going to start our conversation.
All right.
Malawi, known as the warm heart of Africa, boasts an incredible nature bounty, but it is facing a lot of challenges. Deforestation, driven largely by cooking activities, is eroding its forests, impacting not only the environment, but also the livelihoods of countless communities. On the flip side, access to clean renewable energy is a critical need, not just for cooking, but powering homes, schools, and businesses. It is a bridge to progress and a path towards reducing the reliance on finite fossil fuels. In this episode, we are sitting on Mzuzu University campus in the Department of Renewable Energy. And I am your host, Dennis Imani, and my co-host, who is ghosting right now, Bridget Litete.
All right. Just a small correction. It's the Department of Energy Systems.
Department of Energy Systems.
Yes.
That's actually news now. I think there's been a restructuring. I think when I left, which was 10 years ago, it was the Department of Energy Studies. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Great. To start our conversation, from that opener, there's a challenge that we're facing, and hugely our forests are suffering.
Yeah.
Do you have statistics or an idea of how much forest cover is being cleared out due to cooking activities or just cutting down for different uses that you are aware of?
Okay. So I do not have precise statistics on the question you've just asked regarding how much forest cover is probably going away and stuff like that. Probably because it's a forestry issue.
Yes.
Which of course closely linked to energy.
Yeah, exactly.
As you've just said it. What I'll probably comfortably say about statistics to do with energy issues. So, for example, Malawi is heavily biomass dependent.
All right.
And that hovers around 97% of the energy needs are made by biomass. So that alone speaks volumes of how much the challenges and the situation is in the country.
Okay.
So maybe closely linked to energy issues is an issue to do with energy access. And that energy access is twofold. Twofold in the sense that on one hand, it talks about access to electricity. And on the other hand, it's access to clean cooking.
Clean cooking, yeah.
Yeah, so I think your matter is on the clean cooking. Of course, there's always an overlap because when you look at issues to do with clean cooking, there's quite a wide array of technologies.
Yeah.
And one of them is electric cooking. So there's that kind of overlap.
Okay.
When you're talking of access to electricity, you are in a way also talking about access to clean cooking when you just look at the electricity aspect.
Right.
Yeah. So generally speaking, we perform badly in both statistics. So, for example, in terms of access to electricity, our country hovers around. We talk of 19% or thereabout. But that one is an issue to do with combination of access to electricity in terms of grid connection and maybe say off-grid solutions like solar systems.
Right.
So the grid connection is about maybe 12 to 14% whilst the off-grid aspect is about 6%. So that is quite low statistic compared to other neighboring countries. And when you look at access to clean cooking, it's even worse, because I think we are at about 1% or thereabout. Maybe 2 years ago we were at about 1%, and the statistic could not have changed
significantly.
Yeah, sure. So it's about that, and that explains how bad the situation is. So going back to the issues of cooking and maybe say depletion of forest cover, you're going to see that this low access to clean cooking entails it's interesting when you talk of access to clean cooking. Because generally speaking, biomass is renewable.
Okay,
Only when it's used sustainably.
Okay.
So the challenge that we are having is unsustainable use of the biomass product.
Okay.
Especially when you look at issues to do with charcoal use. Maybe back to the question.
All right. We know that renewable energy is getting global significance in how we do things, apart from just cooking, which we are going to focus on, lighting or different forms of energy. How or what are you doing as a department of energy systems to make sure that there's access? There are all these statistics that you have given, 1% or thereabout is a very low statistics looking at a population of 19 million people. And as a faculty or a university where the faculty sits, what solutions actually are there, or what initiatives would you point at that this is what we are actually doing and this is how this is performing? What are those things that you can actually share with us?
All right, interesting. It's probably a reasonably huge array of things to talk about, what the department is doing, but maybe just kind of a brief background about the department. So basically, of course, we are proud to consider ourselves as pioneers in energy in Malawi, especially when you talk about the renewable energy. Yeah. So we have two strands in the university. We have the Department of Energy Systems, and we have a Test and Training Center for Renewable Energy Technologies, TICRET.
Okay.
I am the current coordinator for the Test and Training Center for Renewable Energy Technologies. So the brief background is that back in 2003, the government of Malawi had a project through UNDP. It was called Barren Project, where after analysis, it was found that there were barriers to promoting access to clean energy. So the Test and Training Center was made up, and its mandate was to provide training in renewable energy technologies, as well as providing testing services. I think it was an issue to do with substandard products getting into the country. Yeah. So the idea was to work hand in hand with Malawi Bureau of Standards from that perspective. One of the outputs from TICRET was to come up with a department, which is the one we have, Department of Energy Systems. Then it was Department of Energy Studies. Yeah. And the interest of the department was to run degree program, the current degree program that we are running, which is a BSc in Renewable Energy Technologies.
Okay.
Yeah. So from that perspective, we have the Test and Training Center and the Department of Energy Systems. Sometimes there's a thin line between the two, but generally the department is more into the teaching aspect, where the degree program is offered, whilst the Test and Training Center for Renewable Energy Technologies runs short courses for trainings, as well as provision of consultancy services and research activities, community outreach projects. So from the department point of view, we have the BSc program, which is training people in renewable energy. We have trained more than 400 graduates, which is a reasonable contribution to the energy sector. Yeah. And the Test and Training Center has trained over 400 again technicians, engineers in renewable energy technologies. But apart from the trainings, the department carries out or the center carries out research activities. So we have quite a huge array of technologies that we promote. So you talk of solar PV systems, you talk of biogas technologies, wind systems, geothermal technologies. We are into these technologies really. We work with different organizations, say organizations like the UNDP, Malawi, we have MERA, we have Ijenko, ESCOM, Community Energy Malawi.
Yeah.
We provide different services. So for example, from the biogas perspective, which is one of the solutions towards cooking challenges, I think we have installed more than 60 biogas digesters across the country.
Okay. In what period?
Yeah, so of late, we've not been actively into biogas technology, but over the past 10 years, we've done quite a lot on that. For example, we've had maybe say about 12 biogas digesters in Nchinji with Scottish government funding. We've had about another 12 biogas projects around in Mzuzu, I think with the British High Commission funding. And then we also have had some projects back in Lilongwe, Salima, in biogas projects. And we've gone as far as Zambia as well at some point, providing services outside the country. So from that perspective, we do quite a lot. We have designed off-grid systems like the one in Chinji, which was done by Community Energy Malawi. Yeah. We designed that system. And we provided other designs for other mini grids in different parts of the country. We've also done some installations in hospitals, health centers, and we have continuously been running research activities, for example, doing sustainability studies, baseline surveys with different organizations. Currently, we have about maybe 5 projects running. One with with the University of Sheffield. There's one we're doing with Save the Children International. We have a World Bank project, the SAFE project. We have consultancy services with Oxfam Malawi. Yeah, and we are actively talking about other projects with GIZ via the NDev string of GIZ.
Okay.
So we probably have something at any one time.
Okay.
I don't remember any one time when there was nothing on the ground happening. Yeah, so we are always busy, really.
I see.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Good.
Okay, just for my sake,
Yes.
and also for the viewers that maybe don't understand biogas technology and things like those, can you clarify and maybe explain what that is? That technology, especially what does it entail?
All right. So biogas technology is about production of gas, basically methane gas, which is a combustible gas that you can use for cooking. It's basically a process where any biodegradable material degrades in the absence of oxygen, and then the product that you have there is the methane gas, which normally we just get it direct to a cooking point. When you talk of biodegradable materials, we look at things like cow dung, food waste, human waste, anything that is biodegradable, really.
Okay.
I remember we had a project which, of course, didn't complete along the way. We were installing biogas digesters running on human waste in about 5 schools in the north. I think things like Chiwavi, Mzuzu Gava, but for some reason the funder had problems in finishing up the project. But just to mention that anything that is biodegradable goes into a digester, and then you have the gas coming out. There's quite a huge array of technologies around biogas, but the ones that we've dealt with mostly are fixed dome digesters, which are more or less like a septic tank under the ground with a fixed dome for gas collection, and then you do that. But there are other options like using plastic bags. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Can these biodigesters be made like on a large scale? I'm looking at, for instance, Zuzu City. Yeah, it's actually a very big city, and I don't know how many households that Zuzu City has, but each and every home is producing something. Right? So I'm looking at it on this angle that, let's say Mzuzu City has a large scale of biodigester that I don't know, maybe in each and every location that it can be producing gas for each and every household. I don't know, because I'm looking at it on this angle that we have like where each and every city and everything. I'm also looking at it on a pollution angle, because probably in each and every city or each and every urban location, we always have this kind of places. Have you ever thought that probably this technology can also help in terms of that angle, that maybe if you do it on a larger scale or in every location, you have a biodigester that people can just go throw their things there and
interesting, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, have you ever thought in those lines before?
Yeah, generally speaking, the sky's the limit. It's doable. Sometimes it feels like we sit on solutions, but maybe getting them running, it's another story. But what you're suggesting is doable. Of course, depending on what other players do as you get things on board. But I know we have had initiatives around maybe putting up a biogas digester at the prison services, so that the waste gas into their cooking to reduce their dependence on firewood. The other example I've just talked about, Mzuzu, Gava, like Chiwavi, Chiputura primary schools. They're all examples. I think we also had another proposal. We're working with one of the organizations trying to come up with a biogas digester for the market. It's all doable. We have the expertise. We have the skills. It's just a question of tapping the skills that we have. If we have investors coming through, we can always do that. You've just talked of like the entire thing. That's an issue to do with waste to energy issues. Literally this month, I was in the UK, back in the UK where I did my studies, and one of the places we visited in Yorkshire was about energy or waste to energy recovery facility. It's literally what you're talking about. So it's doable. You have waste going into a biogas digester, and then you have gas production in mass, and then you use the gas to run turbines, and then you generate electricity. Because biogas from digesters is not limited to cooking. You can generate electricity out of it. Just run the gas into a gas turbine, and then you have electricity coming out. So yes, it's doable.
Okay. Talking about installing the digesters.
Yes.
Do you only target maybe schools, hospitals, prisons, or maybe what's your target when installing these digesters, and how do you identify them that we need to go and install it here and there in the communities?
Oh yeah, an interesting question. So it's either ways. Sometimes we follow what the client is looking for. In many cases, the client would not have a good answer to the question, but we advise. So, for example, like the one we had in Mchinji, we're targeting farmers. We had to look for communities that are having cattle. Okay. So I think in Mchinji there was a project, Heifer International, that was giving cattle to communities. And then we look at the feedstock to the digesters. That's the main thing. Because you build the digester, but for it to run, it has to be continuously fed, just like feeding a human being. Yeah, you feed it probably on a daily basis, and then you have gas on a daily basis. So the key factor is the feedstock. You can talk of cattle farmers, you talk of the market, like the waste that you have from the market. If it is a hotel, you look at food waste. So the big answer is about the feedstock, availability of feedstock. About homes around the city, it's doable, but sometimes the changes could be maybe planning issues where the way the houses are located, it's sometimes not as conducive. But in places like Atoto, it's possible to configure the sewer system and then redirect it to biogas production. So it's doable. It's just that sometimes it touches on other players, and then it's a question of coming together.
You have said it's doable several occasions, and I'm interested. One, because you just indicated that since the department was open, there have been about over 400 graduates that have gone out. And in your explanation about the different projects, I've heard very interesting names of NGOs, which are a big player when it comes to environmental issues. You've talked about DFID, you've talked about GIZ via NDEV, you have talked about UNDP.
Yeah.
These are organizations that usually pump in a lot of funds when they're supporting projects.
Yeah.
So looking at the expertise that is out there that you have sent out from the graduates to the resources, of which in this case could be funding for different projects that are going out there, there surely must be activity going on in the communities. What do you think is still the challenge for these activities to actually maybe be visible, or are there issues with acceptance of the communities where these projects are going? The issue of the human biodegradables projects that you're talking about and the fund that did not complete, was it an issue of acceptance or financial situation?
So maybe the last one, I think the matter was about, if I was to call it, maybe financial management.
Okay.
Because sometimes we do our projects by getting all the funding and implement everything ourselves.
Okay.
Like the one in Mchinji, we did it ourselves. We just got the funding. But sometimes we tend to take the role of a designer and a consultant, where we ask these funders to identify a contractor who would implement the project according to our designs, and then we monitor their implementation of the project. Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the major changes we had with that project was that we did the designs. We advised on getting a contractor. The contractor was engaged. But then what happened was, along the way, the funding from the organization to the contractor got cut for some reason. So the work did not complete.
I see.
Yeah.
And on the first question, acceptance.
So on the first question, interesting. There's no one clear-cut answer to that question. But generally speaking, there's reasonably a lot happening out there. We have quite a huge number of entrepreneurs or small organizations, like business organizations, dominated by graduates from Mzuzi University, which is a reasonable manifestation of the impact out there. And when you look at, when you get into energy issues, chances are one or two of the people you find there are Mzuni products.
Yeah, I think I can count. I've got several. As you were talking about that, I actually went around in my head to I know companies like Zua Energy,
Exactly.
I think is a Mzuni graduate who studied that. There's Rekapo, Mzuni. I think there are a couple of companies that are actually doing well that I know,
And these companies, some are from the degree program, others are from the TCRED programs. So there's reasonable impact, but I think there's still a huge gap, because if you're saying about 14% have access to electricity, it means we have about 80-something%.
That is left. Yes.
That is left. So that suggests a big market that is currently not served. Of course, one of the challenges we have is that renewable energy products are sometimes expensive, although over time we are seeing quite drastic reduction in prices. For example, the prices of solar panels have kept on going down because of mass production and stuff like that. We have one of the challenges like cost of batteries for solar PV systems for energy storage. But because of the electric vehicle movement, we are seeing mass production of batteries and that is naturally seeing a reduction in prices, a blessing in disguise of some order. So from that perspective, we expect to see more proliferation of the renewable energy products. The Malawi government is also doing its part. We have waivers from MRA, where some of the renewable energy products have waivers, like if you're importing solar panels, you have tax waivers on that. So all that are initiatives towards promoting access to clean energy. It's a long way to go, but I think there's some progress in the background.
One of the issues that I heard or I've been hearing from people when it comes to this shift, moving from traditional ways of energy consumption or energy usage, has been issues attached to cultural practices or cultural norms, and the resistance to move from that, mainly from people in the rural areas. I would give an example. I heard a story of a biodigester trying to be implemented in one of the rural areas. And this was the one that you're talking about. We could put in animal dung, you could put in human waste and all that. And the people said, no, why do I put human waste into this thing that actually takes out fire and brings it into my kitchen?
Yeah.
That's a taboo. I can't be cooking using fire that's coming from human waste. So no, we can't take that. And there are also other beliefs that people believe the best in Sima. I don't know if it's the best in Sima or Sima must be cooked from firewood and not something, all these things
without smoke. Yeah.
And to add on that, we have a lot of traditional ceremonies. A funeral, a very good example. When there's a funeral in an area, everybody brings a piece of firewood to the funeral. So we have the men gathering around a huge fire. The women are bringing their own firewood to the fire, the cooking space and whatnot. It's part of tradition and all that. In the implementation of all these technologies and innovations that you have mentioned, has there been a conflict between cultural norms and the tech and the innovations on the other side?
Yeah, an interesting observation. One of the things that are unique about our program, especially the degree program, is that it is a blend of engineering and, it's heavy engineering, but we also have some bits and bobs about social sciences, kind of. This is literally on the understanding that the technologies that we promote interact with people. So from that perspective, we have the people dimension associated with these technologies, exactly what you're saying. So for example, in terms of biogas, we have had cases where literally about maybe 10 kilometers away from here, where a biogas digester failed simply because the man left for some while. And the matter was, the digester is designed to be fed on daily basis with cow dung, and that cow dung is collected from the cattle house. But then they have this culture where they say if women go into the cattle house, it affects the
production of the cattle.
Exactly. So they are not allowed to go into the cattle house
and do anything in there.
From that perspective, the man leaves, the digester was not fed, it failed. So that is one example of cultural factors affecting these technologies. We think of the tradition where grandmothers, grandparents sit with the children on the fire, talking about stories, blah blah blah. You realize it's probably a bit difficult to do that on a biogas burner. Yeah, you wouldn't do that. Things like roasting maize. You wouldn't roast maize on the biogas. So such kind of dynamics. But then the matter is, when you're promoting these solutions, we don't take it that people have to abandon everything. Sometimes it's an issue to do with blending, or maybe blending of some order. Because even if one has got a biogas digester, they would still have some kind of backup on their backyard. But then maybe just to mention that, of course, there are these challenges and people of a reliance on biomass, but there are many parts in the country where they literally don't have firewood today. Not in town, but in the villages. We have a project with Oxfam now. We just had some kind of baseline study in Salima, Lilongwe, and Blantyre, in peri-urban and rural areas. People have gone to the extent of going hungry overnight because they don't have firewood. Not that they don't have food, but firewood. So what that suggests is that, when people say we can't do this, it's because they probably have the firewood. But there's a point when that fire is not going to be there if nothing is done about the situation. So the general understanding is that, we have these challenges from behavior change issues. But it's a thing that can be resolved via training, advocacy. The project that is being run by Oxfam is looking at the advocacy bit. Even in town, even in your home, I am sure people have claimed, Mugama piga nyemba, mugeba magala. Ask them why. It's not about the taste, it's about the cost.
Yeah.
So over time, many people have believed and are convinced that electricity is expensive than charcoal. But the opposite is true. Yeah. Because you use so much charcoal to cook. You know, people they use charcoal for cooking beans, boiling water, say bath water.
Yeah.
All high consumption services, they're pushed to charcoal. And you leave the electricity for lighting the TV and stuff like that. So the little electricity that is there, available in the urban setting, not much is used for cooking. And that goes down to issues to do with perception and stuff like that. Of course, maybe digressing a bit, the challenge to do with charcoal is mainly propelled by town setting, because that's where charcoal goes. Charcoal is not mainly used in the rural areas. It's used
they produce and then they send to the end
town.
user who are
Exactly.
urban dwellers.
For them is livelihood. For the town people is an alternative source of energy. So one of the challenges that we've had, you have seen in the newspapers, you've seen the government arresting people, confiscating, blah, blah, blah. But you still, if you go to the market, you still find the charcoal is there.
Every day.
So it's an issue to do with a situation where you want to stop something, but you don't have adequate solutions to the problem. So for example, if all the charcoal that comes through was blocked, you're going to realize that there's not enough electricity to cook on. So people have to have options. Of course, we have now promotion of gas, LPG gas. Yeah, which is clean, but it's not renewable. That's the other story.
Okay.
It's clean cooking, but not renewable because it's fossil-based. So from that perspective, we need quite a lot of things to come in one place to get around this problem. We have a national charcoal strategy, a 2017 national charcoal strategy. It has got all these things trying to address the issue of deforestation via charcoal use. We have a few registered charcoal producers. One of them is Kawandama.
Oh, yeah.
They're producing sustainable charcoal. So charcoal on its own is not a problem, but when you're using it, when it is unsustainable, that's when it is a problem. So we need this kind of initiative towards promoting sustainable charcoal, as well as actively coming up with alternatives, so that when you're blocking the charcoal, there should be an alternative.
Something that
yeah, sure. Otherwise, the damage is real.
Yeah, but then also with the renewable charcoal, is it? Sustainable charcoal.
Yes.
There's also a problem in the communities. Like most people know, sama gangarimene winaya mayakiva. Yeah, like you modo age swamp, you know. So most people they still prefer this one, the prohibited one, to this sustainable one. So I don't know, like, is there any solution to that problem?
Yeah, it's a complex matter, because apart from providing alternative cooking options to the people, say in the urban setting, we also have to look at alternative livelihood options for the
people in the rural areas. Yes, actually,
because just telling them that no to cutting down trees for charcoal, the next question is, how am I going to feed my family? Because I look at this as my resource. But then maybe one of the things to advance is to say, let's just go into the future where all the trees are gone. What's going to happen?
Actually, probably that's the question that we are asking here.
Yeah.
You and us sitting here, can we reimagine? This is the thing that we see. That's why we're calling this podcast series Reimagine.
Yes.
If we sit down here and let everything the way it is, let's finish all the trees. What are we going to do at that particular time?
Those are the questions we need to be asking everyone. Practical issues. Back in the places that we have done our baseline survey with Oxfam, there are communities that do not have firewood around, and they are literally cooking on maize stalks.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I was going to show you photos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that. And
Their firewood is maize stalks. And they're going to the extent of digging that bit which remains in the ground. Yeah. They dig those things and then bring them in the home as their firewood. That's their main firewood. So you're going to see it's already a conflict, because from an agriculture point of view, that is a source of manure.
Yeah.
So it's a complex matter. It's extremely sad. and the other challenge is these things of energy, they also have got the political aspect, where you find there are people who have, I don't know, if you look at movement of charcoal, there are big players that move this charcoal. Not, of course, you have these bicycle people, but you've heard of trucks, big trucks that ferry charcoal from the commuters to urban setting, and we've heard of people being arrested, blah blah blah. So politics come into play. Yeah, it's a big matter, but we need solution.
When you look at all that scenario, do you think we have any positive outlook or expectation of how things are? Bringing politics, bringing livelihood, economic issues that are there in the rural areas. This is a source of livelihood.
Exactly.
And politics are actually using that to play their game. Exactly. So they'll tell them, no, you can go into that forest as far as you vote for me. I know I've heard a story, I don't know if it was in Malosa or where an aspiring member of parliament told people to vote for him. If they do, they can go into the forest and cultivate. And this is like a protected forest.
Reserve,
you can,
Interesting.
Does that give us any positive expectations of where we are going?
Yeah, interesting. So we're not in politics, but we don't deny the fact that politics are part of the game.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we can advocate for is political will from the government. For example, we're saying we have a national charcoal strategy. It's a document that is putting up strategies, options towards combating this overdependence on charcoal. How much we have lived up to the strategy, it's another question. It's a 2017 document, 5 years, expiring in 2022. We're in 2023.
And it's amazing that I thought I know most of the strategies that are out there, but I've never heard there was anything like a charcoal strategy.
Yeah, we have a national charcoal strategy, 2017 national charcoal strategy. So it of course there are things happening on the background. We are seeing some kind of increased uptake of LPG gas technologies. We have different organizations like the Community Energy Malawi and all these other players promoting the use of LPG. It has got its issues. For example, perception as well. People fear the gas like it's dangerous. People get burned. Exactly, yeah. So it's a puzzle that needs a lot of things to be fixed in. We only have to keep on pushing. We are trying our best, keeping on providing trainings. We do the community outreach projects. We do the consultancy services. We advise the government in different perspectives. Yeah, but it's a big problem because in each of the communities you visit where they don't have trees, ask them what the situation was maybe 10 years ago. They'll tell you, this was the forest. And today you can see someone on the horizon. You can see from afar. These trees going away, it's a whole range of problems. Animals, biodiversity issues. Yeah. We have all these things of floods coming through, erratic rains. It's a whole challenge, really. We only have got one option. We have to change our way of doing things. Yeah, before it's too late.
Is it not too late?
It is too late, but it's never too late anyway. Mm-hmm. It's too late, but the best we can is
from here.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I don't really get, I know this is a conversation that we'll still need to have with people from the Department of Forestry, because it actually like really points towards them. every year we have tree planting season periods and all that. But every time I see these places where people went to plant trees, they'll go there the next year. You don't see the ones that they planted 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Every time what's happening there is planting new trees. And I don't know what the problem is, because I'm sure there are a lot of resources that are being pumped towards reforestation. But where we're still cutting down trees, and the areas that we are trying to reforestate don't exist. It's like we're in the middle of a puzzle that we don't know.
Maybe the major challenge is a balance. The rate at which the forests are being depleted versus the rate at which they're being regenerated. So it's either you plant trees or you have this kind of regeneration. Regeneration takes a long time because they are local trees. There are patches and places across the country with these kind of initiatives. You would see them, and it's quite beautiful when you see one. But the problem is, I think the rate at which the destruction is happening is at a fast rate. One of the things we have not actively talked about are the effects towards vulnerable groups, especially women, children, girls. When you look at in the local setting, they are the ones who do the cooking. When they're cooking using biomass products like wood, they are the ones who are subjected to hazardous
smoke.
Exactly. So it's also another area that we probably need to have efforts on. As a investor, as a department, as TICRET, we are actively doing that. Most of the consultancy services we are providing around those areas. When you talk of our programs, we just recently reviewed our program, and we've actively included issues to do with gender and energy, productive use of energy, to try to promote or to try to help the vulnerable groups from this poverty.
Okay. You have talked about women and these girls that use wood and all that. When we were coming to Mzuzu, I think somewhere right after Chikangawa, I think even in Chikangawa, like after the 23 we met a man on a bike with that whole huge load of firewood. It's like, I don't know, maybe 4 meters high. Right? And it's like on a steep incline going up on the road. And this guy is literally pushing his bike with this, I don't even know how high it was. So looking at women and girls, don't you also think there's also a health problems that these men who are busy pushing 4 meter high full of firewood and all that? Like, I know that we're talking about gender, and most of the times we're looking at women and how it's affecting women and all that, but somehow I was looking at this man and thinking about, how is he going to sleep this night? I was like, how is he going to sleep tonight? And I'm thinking about his health and all of those things. Is there anything else that you do in terms of these people?
That's an interesting question. Probably food for thought, but maybe some kind of guesstimate. We would say exercise. Not a good thing, but to exercise. I think the effects that we see from, say, women, especially when it comes to exposure to hazardous fumes, directly links to health issues. For example, we talk of respiratory diseases and stuff like that. Generally speaking, it's about maybe, say, decent life. So for this man, it's not a decent life, if we are to call it a decent life, because they're struggling, pushing all that long. And probably the margin they're getting out of their efforts is this small. Maybe it's the one who is buying from them who is benefiting the most, something of that nature. So it's an interesting question, really. There's always this debate when you're pushing for a girl child. What about the boy child? Even in legal issues, we have seen this thing of sexual whatever harassment, blah blah blah, where the boy child has been left out as. But it is recognized that is a two-sided story, really. Yeah, maybe it's just a question of the gravity of the matter. It's more onto the women maybe than the men. But it's an interesting observation. Probably need some research on that. Yeah.
Okay, another question. You have talked about gas cylinders. People saying they don't want to be using those gas cylinders because it's dangerous. And I have a person who lost a friend because gas cylinder went to the hospital, didn't survive. That person died, and that friend of mine, I was me, I cannot use a gas cylinder in my house because I lost a friend because of this gas cylinder. And I can also imagine like the family that lost this person. They're like, we cannot use this thing again because at any time chitagupulika without even a warning. So are there any measures to ensure that to maybe to achieve some safety in the use of these gas cylinders? But maybe we shouldn't be losing people due to kupulika, and also that these things should be used without fear. Yeah,
it's an interesting question. Probably, I would say in transport, probably airplane is the safest mode of transport. I don't know if you knew that. But if you think of what happens when the plane crashes, one would feel like, are you really sure that plane is the safest mode of transport? So if you look at, say in Malawi, how many people die on the road versus those who die in flying? Of course, there are not a lot flying, but on aggregate, there are many people flying around, and casualties are not as much as those on the road. It's the same thing with what you've just said. We might think gas is this bad, like the example that you've given. Sorry for that, to that friend. But when you look at this statistic, for example, we talk of maybe say about, 4 million people die every year across the globe because of exposure to hazardous fumes from cooking. I've forgotten the statistics for Malawi, but it's the same bad thing. If you go into the hospitals, if you go into health issues, they have statistics on how much this problem is to women. They're probably kind of hidden problems, but there are a lot more people dying as a result of exposure to firewood or smoke than those who would die from use of LPG. So it's an issue to do with understanding this kind of dynamics. Advocacy is important. In many cases, these gas technologies, they have got safety features on them. So for example, the gas canister has got valves that have to be literally open. And in many cases, you have two valves, one on the cylinder and one on the cooking point, to make sure that you reduce the risk of fire. In many cases, people have to be trained. For example, you don't have to light your match. You have to start lighting your match before you open the gas. Sometimes people make the mistake of opening the gas and then they light up. When they open, you have the gas coming out. The moment they light up, it's a bomb, kind of. It depends on the setting. If it is an open space, it's not going to be a big matter. But if it is closed, that would be a problem. So it's a question of provision of training. The biogas digesters technology that we talked about, we always provide this kind of training to the users, that you should make sure that each time you're lighting up, make sure you start the light and then you switch on the gas. We have not had problems with the digesters we've installed so far in terms of safety issues. To our knowledge, I don't think so. But it's an issue that needs this kind of awareness campaigns and trainings. Yeah, everything has got its problems, but the problems from exposure to hazardous smoke is bigger than the problems you get from the use of gas.
All right. Are there any measures put in place to ensure that the consumers, or I should say the buyers of this gas, are being trained? Because to me, I feel like some people are not trained. They just go there, they buy it, and then they start using it. So are there any measures to ensure that maybe they should always train these people or give them maybe some instructions instead of just selling them the thing? Well, I feel we have sold it and we have made money. Are there any measures?
It's an issue to do with advocacy, really. Because when you look at energy as a regulated product, if one has to sell gas, they have to have a license. So one of the expectations from a licensee is that they would always seek to train users when they're selling their products. But as you're saying, sometimes people just buy. They don't have the time to listen to the seller. Off they go. So we can only keep on advocating for trainings, really. From our perspective, when you're doing our trainings, we emphasize on safety issues. And that one way is to make sure people are trained. It's a thing that we can always promote. One of the safety features in gas technologies, sometimes they put scent, so that if there's a gas leak, you can quickly know using your sense of smell, something like that. So yeah, there are challenges, but you can keep on improving. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else burning that you think we need to? Well, I look at.
Okay, I have another question. We've talked about different challenges in using these new technologies, the digesters and the gas cylinders, but coming to rural areas, there might be some people who are okay using these new technologies, solutions, whatever we can call them, but they find them expensive and they cannot afford. What measures are there maybe to ensure that these technologies are being adopted, and that they're being accessed, and they're being affordable? Are there any measures to help with that?
Yeah, you're coming up with interesting questions. There are things that I think we are aware of, like from the academia. There's always this bit of energy injustice, where the town person who is considered wealthier, you have the whole government supporting the provision of access to electricity, like ESCOM and stuff like that. Yeah, because the tariffs that we pay for ESCOM are not very economic tariffs. The government still has money pumped in to help matters, and ESCOM cannot just raise tariffs without going through these procedures and stuff like that. But the point is, you have a rural person who is left to find solutions to the energy problems, because the town person, you have the whole government working with ESCOM, making sure there's electricity when something happens, blah blah blah,
Fixing.
Yeah, but the rural person is more or less like left alone. So that's an issue to do with energy injustice. Of course, the government is trying its part. We have programs like MARE program, which is probably trying to extend the grid to the rural communities. Yes. And you have they have a lower tariff compared to maybe say other people in the town setting. But as the statistics show, the majority of Malawians are in the rural areas. So this 14% access to grid electricity is heavily concentrated in the urban setting. So the problem is still there. One of the challenges is extending the grid to rural communities that are displaced. It's very expensive. Yeah, very expensive. You get to this community, maybe there are only maybe say 50 households. Yeah. And for you to bring a hot transformer for that one is very expensive. Their demand is going to be this low. But then when you go into our policy documents, the country seeks to get 100% access to electricity via different options, grid and
100% access.
Yeah, the initial target was 100% by 2030, but that is nowhere near. Yeah.
I know you're energy systems expert, which means it's hydro, it's thermal, and all this. What do you think is the solution to Malawi's energy poverty? When you look at all the options, because we know there are all these conversations going on. No, the West says we need to adopt clean renewable energies because they have already depleted the ozone layer, and they want us to be paying all those things. When you look at hydro, when you look at thermal, there's also what nuclear power, and others. If we're to achieve at least a certain percentage, I don't think 100% by 2030 is possible. Yeah. Let's say get to 50%. What are we supposed to prioritize?
All right, interesting. Energy issues are a bit tricky in the sense that they are sensitive matters in a way. You agree with me? We see wars in Russia, Ukraine, And then you have this thing of how we're going to cut your gas supply, blah, blah, blah. It's a complex matter to an extent. Anyway, coming back to Malawi, we are over 98% renewable because we're running on hydro. But then when it comes to power systems, we have this issue of baseload generation. So baseload generation is about electricity generation that, and for a layman's point of view, that should be reasonably there all the time, as long as your systems are up and running. Yeah. So one of the challenges that we have is that we don't have a robust baseload generation. We rely on hydro, but you agree with me, when there's low water levels on the lake, we hear these stories that, we can't run all the machines because there's low water flowing through the river. That's typical aspect of renewable energy. It's only hydro that is reasonably stable to an extent, but when you talk of solar, it's a day-to-day variation. In the night there's no solar, in the day we have solar. So these renewable energy technologies have got limits. We probably cannot comfortably rely on 100% renewables because we lack this base load. And maybe a technical term, when you're looking at, say, hydro, we have what we call rotating machines.
The turbines.
The turbines, yes. So if you look at it from a bigger perspective, those machines, they cannot just stop like in a second because they have got mass on it. So they have inertia. They keep running, which means you'll probably not just have this kind of abrupt disruption to your power supply. But when you look at things like solar, you can have solar off in a fraction of a second, as long as there's shading, as long as you can have no solar at all. That's what we had at some point where they were saying, no, we are having this kind of blackout because of the solar that we're having. It's an issue to do with how stable these technologies are. So moving forward, we need a good mixture of our energy generation, which should include baseload generation. You'd achieve baseload generation generally from nuclear and fossil-based power generation. That is why recently you have seen in the newspaper about Kamamba coal-fired plant issues.
Yes.
We need that one for our baseload generation. It's a fossil-based technology. We have coal. There's coal around Mozambique, which is close by. Even the developed countries, they have coal in their generation mix. They have gas in the generation mix. The only matter that they are actively doing is expanding their generation via renewables. But their base load is still on the fossil-based generation. You got the US 2050 projection, they still have coal, they still have gas, and of course they have nuclear. Nuclear is not fossil-based. It's basically considered clean. It is clean. It's not renewable because you're relying on finite feedstock from nuclear, like uranium.
Yeah.
But it's a clean technology. But one of the major changes with nuclear is that it needs high expertise because of safety issues. It's expensive, but also safety issues. I think you've heard of nuclear explosions like in Japan. Yeah. They are big matters, really. We have an energy policy document that has got this kind of projection. Those things are there, including nuclear technology. I think we look at, I don't know, it should be, if not 2025, it's 2035, one of these two. I've just forgotten. But then it's a tall ladder to get to nuclear technology. From our perspective, we are probably doing something about it. I think we are soon starting a master's program, which I'm coordinating as well. In the master's program, we've incorporated nuclear technology as one of the aspects to try to contribute towards that. You go in the energy policy, there is a clear identification of this gap in human capacity. We currently don't have good capacity in nuclear technology. It's not
something that would start like...
Yeah, we discussed this. Yeah, but look, we do not have this expertise in the renewable energy, but today we have people around. So it's something that we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As this these energy solutions, there's something new. We haven't yet like fully accepted them. So what could be your piece of advice, maybe to individuals, to the society, and also to the policymakers on how we can maybe fasten the transition from our usual energy ways to these new solutions? How can we maybe accelerate the transition and the acceptance for these renewable energy solutions?
Oh yeah, still interesting. Yeah, it's okay. So as I've already said, people have talked of transitioning to renewable for Malawi. I think it's wrong perception. We're not transitioning because we are already 98% plus renewable. We have quite small amount from thermal power systems like the ones we have, I think, in Mzuzu, down in Planta Chichiri, Ligonge Kanengo, something like that. We have the diesel generators, but the bulk of our electricity generation is from renewables. And biomass is renewable. It's only that maybe it's not sustainable from our perspective. So it's not necessarily transitioning to renewables, but keeping on promoting renewables. One of the advantages with renewables is that it's easier to reach out to the remote areas. It's easier to move panels, batteries, cables to a remote village than moving the grid. So when you look at it from that perspective, renewables are a handy solution, but it's not a complete solution. Because these technologies that we push into these communities, they have limitations in terms of capacity. Renewables can do anything. As we're already seeing that our country is running on renewables. We have many rivers. We have not fully exploited our hydropower potential because I think our hydropower potential is about 1,000 megawatts. They're about, but we're only at about, I think about 440 megawatts kind of. So we have about 600
that is still
untapped. So we probably have to move fast in exploiting this kind of existing potential. We have this solar potential with us, but we still need this kind of baseload, like the CAM member thing. Of course, one of the changes is that maybe say from donors, there are issues to do with funding such projects. But energy problems are our problems. So the country just have to sit down and find solutions to that. We just have to, because we need baseload generation on which renewables can be added on. I think we are almost getting to the limit on which we can add on solar into the grid, because more solar into the grid brings in instability to the grid.
The moment you have no sun due to the weather, that means there's no production being made or distribution or production into the main grid.
So I like an example that one of my colleagues, Dr. Zalengira, gave at one point to say, if you look at a vehicle that is being pushed on a hill, if there may be say 4 people, but one is a strong man. If that strong man moves away, what happens? Oh, it's coming back. So that's the matter to do with baseload generation. We need a stable baseload on which the renewables can ride on, so that when solar goes off, it should not be a big matter. The baseload should still be pushing. But if you have more solar and that solar goes off, even this baseload we have, like the hydropower, will have to go off. It's just as good as 2 big people moving away from pushing a car. The little ones will have to fall off. That's the understanding of the power systems. So if you have the baseload and we have this solar coming in, when there's a cloud cover, because those are transient issues. A cloud coverage, or maybe say an aeroplane flies over. In that moment, if we have good baseload, your system is not going to be shaken quite a big deal. So we need baseload.
Okay.
We need both. But we have uranium.
Because the uranium story, I don't get it anyway. It's more political issues between the global setup and how things are managed. There's one thing that I was trying to remember. We had a conversation this other day, I think when we were preparing to start this series. And one of the things that came through from our conversation was an issue of carbon markets.
Or carbon credits.
Carbon credits, yes. And let me take advantage of sitting down with the, with the expert. If you're talking to a layman about carbon credits, what's this? Because it's like there was a whole event that happened about how do we explore carbon credits and all these things.
Carbon trading.
What's that? What is carbon trading?
Okay. I'll probably give I would say a general answer really. I have not actively engaged myself in carbon credits issues.
Okay.
I have a colleague, Conrad Kone, who is, I think, a bit more actively engaged in those things. But if you are to think about it, carbon credits is an issue to do with, okay, I would give an example. If you have a system, like say a solar system, or you have a biogas digester, you'd sit down and say, my system is saving so much of carbon pollution. So for example, okay, let's give an example of say an electric vehicle. You'd say, okay, if I was driving a fossil-based, a petrol vehicle, like the ones you have outside, or diesel, whatever, you'd say, if I drove to Lilongwe, I would have produced so much carbon that would go into the air, polluting, blah, blah, blah. And then you have another one who is driving an electric vehicle. And then they're saying, driving to Lilongwe, I'm probably not producing any carbon. So there's some kind of saving in terms of how much carbon is being put into the atmosphere. Yeah. So the matter is, this person driving the fossil-based car, like the diesel or petrol-based car, is charged for polluting. Polluting. Yes. So, for example, through the road traffic, whatever, you have a carbon levy, kind of, where motor vehicle operators are charged. So the question is, where does this money go? So the matter is, this money should go to this person who is not emitting carbon into this. Okay. So the matter is, this person will sit down and say, I am avoiding emitting so much carbon. So you pay me for not emitting this amount of carbon. So that's the carbon trading thing. So if you have a renewable energy system that is probably saving so much carbon, there are those organizations out there, especially say in the West, that are generating power using coal, using gas. They are charged for doing that. So that money hanging out there trickles down to countries like ours
that are then emitting more carbon into there.
Yes. So all you have to do is make a demonstration that this technology I'm using is saving so much carbon that would have gone into the atmosphere. So you should pay me so much for this saving that I'm doing. That's the bit about carbon trading. Of course, the challenge that we have is not many people are aware of this kind of dynamics. So you have middlemen coming in who are in contact with the carbon credits out there. So carbon credits is literally monies that are being charged on other people for polluting. And then you have these middlemen that will come to you and say, oh, you have this system. You probably are saving so much. I think we can get you this money.
Carbon credits.
Yes. So when they make that linkage, they get a commission out of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the country is actively looking at kind of normalizing this kind of market. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. So my colleague sits in one of the committees in the government that is looking at carbon credits.
Interesting.
I was going to say, for further details on this.
No, please. We need contacts. We need contacts, and so we can actually understand, because these are some of the things that maybe, even when we're looking at climate injustice that we talked about, we could help these other people now benefit from, because rural people are suffering. And that means they actually have some carbon credits that some of us in town need to be paying to them.
Exactly.
To actually just uplift their lives, but that we're not exploring.
Maybe one of the questions we're going to ask ourselves from a local setting, what happens? I think there's a carbon levy, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I've heard about that, because when you mentioned it's so like the first time that I've heard it, and I'm sure I've heard it locally. I think it was. I
think we have one. I'm not entirely sure how that is managed. But the understanding should be that should be channeled towards those sections that are helping matters. That's That's a very basic understanding. Just like the fuel levy that is charged on, I think, fuel, which goes to, I think, Mera.
Mera and I think the roads
Malawi and the Malawi Electrification Program. I think something like that kind of understanding. Yeah.
Okay. This is
generally speaking, we have solutions that are not being implemented.
It's a big challenge because all these strategies, then the policy documents and everything else that goes with it. When you look at them, when you read, you wonder, where are we getting things wrong?
Yeah. So, for example, when it comes to energy, as I've already said, it's a regulated product. And for certain things to happen, it has to be the government. I would give an example of Rwanda. I think back in 2010, our electrification rate was better than Rwanda. But going down to the issue of political will, we had a learning tour to Rwanda, I think, literally 2 months ago. Rwanda, I think, and Kenya. So for the Rwanda case, in their policy document, they're looking at 100% electrification rate by 2024. So all the government did was to say, you need to have electricity to everyone by 2024. How you're going to do it, it's your business. As we speak, I think they are at about 70%, and they're looking at getting to 100% by next year. Of course, they're using grid extension and off-grid solutions. So what they're doing is they're pushing both. So there's a lot of off-grid solutions coming in through solar, wind, and then you have grid extension on the other hand. So their strategy is by 2024, I think it's going to happen. When you look at the trend, how they have moved over the years, they are very serious. And it's coming from the government. Just say, do it. They will be at 100% by next year, most likely. And their way out is to, after 2024, they're going to keep on extending the grid to areas that have been electrified via off-grid. Because the off-grid, as I've already said, has got limitations. If it is a solar-based, obviously you have this issue of base load coming in, and you have got this limitation. Solar can do everything, but for you to do that, you need to put up so much investment. For example, one of the things that we've not actively talked about is electric cooking. Of course, we mentioned, but there's electric cooking from grid electricity, and there's electric cooking from, say, solar. It's one of the things that we also promoting. And I think there are projects that are promoting electric cooking, both solar and electricity. But then the matter is, when you look at electric cooking, it's a big load that does not run across the day. So when you look at energy profile, demand profile for a household that is doing electric cooking, their profile is going to look like and then in the morning about 6, 7 it goes up and then goes down, and then around lunch hour it goes up. The same thing happens in the evening. So we have places like Bondo mini grid. It's a hydro power mini grid. I think they're running at about if I'm not mistaken, it should be about, is it 160 kilowatts? Anyhow, I forgot it. But the bottom line is, when you look at their demand profile, there is quite huge amounts of time where their system is underutilized. So that's the challenge that you have when you look at these off-grid systems. You want to promote cooking, you have to put so much size of a system, but it's only going to be used
during a certain hour,
2 hours of the day or 3 hours of the day, and the rest of the hours is just staying idle. Of course, one of the solutions to that problem is what we call PO, productive use of energy. It's also an issue that we are actively engaging in, where we're looking at services that communities can use from this electricity that is idling when you're off-peak periods. Of course, this problem is also typical of the ESCOM grid. If you go to ESCOM, they'll tell you, this time our machines are switched off because people are not using electricity, especially in the night when you're sleeping. Nobody is using the electricity and they switch off the machines. But there's a time where they tell you, we're in blackout because there's not enough generation, because everyone has switched on their appliances, blah, blah, blah.
And the load isn't.
Yeah, it's one of the dilemmas in power markets or power delivery. You have to make sure you're able to match this. You can probably influence the behavior. But I think we are not actively doing that in our case, because one of the influencing behaviors in demand side management is variable pricing. So in the developed world, you have a meter that will be telling you this time around electricity is at this much.
So much.
Yes. This time around electricity has gone up. So if we have this kind of variable pricing, which has got its issues as well, you see people maybe say doing their washing in the night when the electricity is cheap.
Yeah, no, this reminds me of a period, which is now it just hits me like that was a clever way of marketing, but I don't know if we were productively using this service. There was a time TNM, I think around 2000 to 2000, they had introduced this night calling.
Yeah.
You could call someone at night
Exactly.
and sleep at like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. Like throughout the night you're on a call. Now I'm just thinking that if you had anything productive to do with your call time at that time, you could have achieved so much.
Yeah.
But this was like you just calling your girlfriend.
Exactly.
And just
chatting
and sleep on phone call. And I think it's
something that needs to go into the electricity market, but it has got its issues.
Because it doesn't make sense how much time we spend sleeping in this country when we could have a certain group of people being active during those nights. And these are the times that you're saying it's more like off-peak for electricity usage. And we all wake up at the same time and we struggle for this power that is it.
If you think of companies, this kind of variable pricing would probably see some companies pushing their production in the night when the electricity is cheaper. That would mean they are probably off during the day when electricity is expensive. They would benefit from the cost reduction, but the power system is going to benefit from the reduced pressure during peak period. Options.
It's absolutely. I think it's a whole. Right now, I'm thinking of we have tried these things, but I think we didn't grasp why we're doing them and how efficient they could have been in terms of development. There was and I don't know if they still do this. A shift yamamawa, a shift yamasana. Of course, people will be talking about the teachers, but it takes off the pressure on the resources that are available.
Exactly.
So let's say the books, the classrooms, and you have got two streams, which are bigger classes sharing the resource. If we had embraced that into, let's say, the workforce, the way our other friends do, because it's what is developing other countries. Night shift team. Morning shift, if it's only the hotels that actually probably do that. But this other
have like the likes of Castel, Chibuku, Coca-Cola, they have those shifts. They have the morning or afternoon, and then they have the night shift. Even hospitals, isn't it? They do that.
Critical. But looking at most of our industries, which are like small scale, or we all switch off at 6. Shops, everything switches off. Maybe because we're not doing more.
So ESCOM normally in the night there was like a
also like reduce
off. Because the machines cannot let running when there's no demand.
So
you still just lose that energy.
You probably will not lose, but the machines will get damaged.
And do we have the capabilities to store energy that has been generated?
That's another matter. So we don't have a lot of storage in our power systems. Storage would mean maybe say a dam. You go to Kapichira, we have a reservoir. There's a dam, but it basically stores the incoming water. Active storage would probably see you pumping the water back up here during off-peak periods when the electricity cost is gone down, and then bring that back on when the electricity cost is high because of peak periods. So we don't have this kind of massive storage systems. That's one of the problems that has been experienced with solar. Today, most of the IPPs, like independent power producers, bringing in solar, they are being requested to bring in storage with it, because
which is there's lithium batteries.
Batteries. Anyway, that's my special area.
Okay, interesting. I've been studying something around that. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested to also just understand what that does and how it works.
I spent my whole 5 years doing battery issues for my PhD.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, interesting.
Yeah. So
Isn't that a solution then? Like if you have a system that converts the available electricity, let's say at this hour, into lithium batteries charged, and then you can switch off the grid or the grid in.
No, it's a solution. The only challenge with the battery storage is cost dynamics, because energy provision also looks at economics, the cost of electricity that you're delivering. So one of the big matters with storage is that storage is twofold. It's either at one point it's a load, it's a consumer. At another point it's a generator. So for this to make sense, you have to consume the electricity at a lower cost than the cost at which you're delivering it back, which is what we don't have in the meantime. So that does not make good economics to an extent.
Okay.
That is why variable pricing becomes an issue, an alternative.
Yeah.
Like in the developed world, they charge their storage devices during off-peak periods when electricity is lower. And then when the prices are up, they use this one back. So you have that kind of arbitrage. You have that kind of margin that comes in. You're spending 200 kwacha to get in your electricity into the storage, and you're selling it back at 400 kwacha. So you have that margin. But buying it at 200, selling it at 200,
then it doesn't make any sense.
that doesn't make good economic, apart from stability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Oh no, this has been an interesting conversation. I didn't know we'd be talking about all these things. When I was coming here, I thought we'd just be talking about firewood,
Yeah.
women. I didn't know it's gonna be this technical and And I love the way you have explained most of these things. I know for some people they are like, oh, technical terms and whatnot, but you actually managed to speak to a layman who's watching or listening, and they probably can really make sense of this conversation. I wouldn't call this the last time that we're talking about this, because we need to find a solution. That's what I believe in.
Yeah.
And as I wrap up, I'll go back to the question that I asked you, which you brought on your own.
Okay.
I didn't ask you, brought on your own. When you look forward, we leave everything as it is. All trees are cut down, and we did not
Do anything.
When you sit there, what do you think will happen that at that particular time? I don't know what you think.
I think an honest answer is it's bad news. It's a thing we should strive not to see happening. We need to do something about it. Because as we're saying, when you go into these communities and they tell you it was all forest and now it's all bare land, and then they have no firewood, and then you're like, how are you surviving? This example of maize stalks we're talking about, during rainy season, it's the maize, it's a green cob.
You can choose that for
The problems are much bigger because they don't have the maize stalks. It's wet. They don't have firewood. It's bad news. If you don't do anything, when you talk to the people, you're like, oh my goodness, I thought I was in problems, but I'm not in problems because of the situation people are in. So apart from the cooking issues, people living in the dark, I think we just have to keep on doing something about it. We have to keep on advocating for access to energy, access to clean energy, access to clean cooking. We have to keep on talking to the government. We have to keep on asking for political will to make sure that these strategies that we have on paper are put into practice. Everyone has to do something about the situation in their own sphere of operation.
Right.
That's the best way to go. Yeah, even yourself.
Yeah, I think
You have something to do within your sphere of operation.
Yeah.
So my sister over there, if you used to say, no, let's cook on charcoal, these beans, cook on electricity, because it's cheaper. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time.
Thank you.
This was supposed to be 45 minutes. How much did we go?
1 hour 30.
1 hour 30 minutes of talking renewable energy and cooking.
Wow.
I never thought I'd sit that long. But thank you so much for your time and for actually allowing to share your expertise in this area with us and our viewers and everybody who watches podcast. Like I said, we're trying to reimagine our world from where we're sitting to what it could be. And we appreciate you coming to reimagine that with us. I've been Dennis Imani. I'm also called Papa Aida. And we had Bridget Litete and the instigator.
The one and only.
The one and only. And also we had Mr. Kellion behind the cameras who made this possible.
Thank you.
It's been an honor being back here and talking about this. Until next time when we come up with another episode of Reimagine podcast series, it's peace all the way from the green city of Mzuzu. And we're out.